In pre-production, it's important to sit down with the director and figure out what the technical specs of the shoot will be. The recording format, the pixel dimensions, the shoot aspect ratio, all that stuff. It plays a role in not only the visual properties of the film, but these details can also affect the workflow. For example, if you choose to shoot your film on a GoPro, like the makers of Hardcore Henry, you don't get the magic of interchangeable lenses, but you also don't have to spend time on your set focusing your camera. And those memory cards can just record and record and record for a very long time. GoPros are also very mobile and they don't require much power. They can be easily concealed for getting candid reactions or for stealing shots. And they don't require any other people to operate. I chose to shoot the Assurance in Red RAW at 4K. That means that our footage is 4096 by 2160 pixels. That's 4 times the size of full HD. Now, when we shot this in March of 2013, there were only a few cameras in the world that shot video in 4K. It was seen by most as pointless and excessive, and a fad that would never catch on. At that time, nothing could even display 4K video. TV sets couldn't, computer monitors couldn't, as far as I know, even most movie projectors couldn't. But I loved it anyway. Usually my final output is HD, 1920 by 1080. So when I shoot 4K, I can either shrink down the footage to fit the HD frame, or I could reframe it in post. This gives me a lot of options while editing. For example, in this shot of Cordelia saying her last words to Tayani, I wanted it to have more emotional power. So I scaled the clip up a bit, and we don't notice a big decrease in quality like we would have if it were shot in 1080. Or I could reframe shots a little if I wanted. If something comes into the edge of frame, like a boom mic or whatever, you have the extra pixels to zoom in and move the shot around in the edit. Or you could reframe for creative reasons, as I did here with Tayani in the hut scene. Sometimes with all the manic tension on set, I make hasty framing decisions that drive me crazy in the much more calm environment of the edit. This kind of flexibility is why I shoot in 4K, even though it creates some challenges. 4K creates some big files, which means editing, storage, visual effects, the entire post-production process, it's a little tougher. And at the time, you needed a big, heavy camera to shoot 4K, which needed a lot of power, which takes a while to start up, and eats up tons of space on memory cards very quickly. Sometimes my Red Scarlet camera, if it overheats, gets too hot, it will just power off if it's been recording too long. And you don't get those problems with the GoPro usually. In addition, we chose to shoot RAW, which also greatly increases the size of the files, which translates to needing more memory cards and also needing someone on set to offload the cards because we go through them so quickly. But with RAW, as we'll see in the upcoming training course on color, RAW gives us so many more options when coloring footage in post. And also, as we'll see in the upcoming courses on visual effects, having 4K RAW footage really helped us with some of the visual effects shots that might have just been impossible with footage that had a lower quality or lower resolution. You'll also want to iron out the aspect ratio with the director, as we discussed earlier. It's important to handle all of these discussions early in pre-production because they can affect the crew and gear needs for the shoot, which in turn affects the budget. These technical issues can also play a big role in how you plan the shots and framing for your shoot. So talk about these things early on with the director and get on the same page as soon as possible.